Vicky Oliver, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to be with you. I'm super excited to have a conversation today. We're going to be focusing on the impact of the pandemic on the labor market and really what employers need to be doing in expecting widespread post-pandemic job hopping as we move into the future and what they can do about it. This is a real challenge during the Great Resignation, and people have had the time over the course of the pandemic to consider their circumstances, consider what they're willing to do, the type of work they're willing to do. And the reality is they have a lot of options right now because of the way the labor market is. And so employers have to do more and more and more to try to attract and retain really great people. So we're going to unpack that. We're going to talk about specifically what organizations and leaders can be doing to try to stem the tide of this pandemic and post-pandemic widespread job hopping and hopefully get a handle on it so we can have great people in our organizations to do the work of the organization. As we get started, I wanted to share Vicky's bio with everybody. Vicky Oliver is a leading career development expert and multi-best-selling author of 5 books, including 301 Smart Answers to Tough Interview Questions, named in the top 10 list of best books for HR interview prep, 301 Smart Answers to Tough Business Etiquette Questions, and Bad Bosses, Crazy Workers, and Other Office Idiots. I love that title, by the way. She's a sought-after speaker and seminar presenter and a popular media source, having made over 900 appearances in broadcast, print, and online outlets. And you can find out more about her at VickyOliver.com. Vicky, again, it's a pleasure to be with you. Anything else you would like to share with my listeners by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in?
First of all, thanks so much for having me. Thank you for that very generous introduction. Sure, I used to be in the advertising business. And when I was in the business, I started by noticing 2 things. People had no idea who I was when they would walk in for an interview. And they also had no idea what the ad agency was or what our clients were. So I decided to, I thought about 100 times, I'm going to write a book about job hunting. And then one day I wrote that book. And that's my background. I put my real email address in the book so that people could contact me with any questions that they had if 301 didn't cover it. And I heard from readers all over the country, and that informed the research for some of my other books. So that's my little bit about me.
Yeah, that's fun. That's a really cool background. I appreciate that. And yeah, I think we all have a book in us or maybe multiple books in us. And that's great that you were able to share all of your years of experience to help other people and other organizations. All right, so let's dive on into the topic for today. Maybe first you can frame up for us a little bit, building on what I said in the introduction about the current circumstance that we find ourselves in during this pandemic. And as I would like to say post-pandemic, but we're not really there yet. And we have a new variant that people are grappling with. So we're still in the middle of it, but with any luck, we'll start to emerge. And we've already seen some big implications for the labor market during the last 20 plus months. So what can you tell us, in terms of framing that up?
Right. So basically, for over a year and a half, most work has gone remote, which means a lot of things. First of all, workers don't have the commute that they used to have, right? They have more time to think, I would say. And because of that, they don't have the commute there. They don't have the commute back. They don't have the grind, at the actual physical office. They don't have their boss looking over their shoulder as much. They don't have the water cooler conversation to distract them. And so as a result, I look at it as people have looked internally and asked themselves how happy they are at their current jobs. And a lot of times the answer is that they're not that happy. And it could be for many different reasons. It could have happened, way before the pandemic. Then the pandemic struck, which might have made job hopping a little bit challenging at first, right? But then day after day, rolling in, from their living room to their home office to work, they had, I think, more time to think and consider whether or not they actually like their jobs. Do their own values align with the values of a company? And if not, what do they want to do about it? And as a result, maybe partly because of the pandemic. There's this pent up need on the part of workers to leave, and it's called the Great Resignation. And everyone now is sort of thinking like, what can I do? Am I being paid enough? Am I happy enough? Am I being rewarded enough? What else can I do? Also, I just want to make this point. We have been forced to learn technology in a way that we never had to before. We have had to step up, and learn new technology for us. Like, how do we do Zoom meetings? How do we deal with each other remotely? How do we communicate maybe with workers that are across the country or even across the world? So we've had to adjust to different time zones. There's a lot of learning that's happened in the past year and a half or more, 20 months. And so workers are also more qualified than they've been before. They have more skills that they've amassed that they can take forward to a new job.
Yeah. So with all of that, it creates the conditions for tremendous opportunity for employees. And as you said, in the early days of the pandemic, we saw huge levels of unemployment, not just in the US, but around the world, as organizations were grappling with closing down their physical spaces. And you mentioned how so many people are working remotely. And certainly within the knowledge economy, knowledge workers have gone largely remote or hybrid. But there's still, lots of frontline workers who have to be in person, and organizations had to grapple with how to deal with that and to keep them healthy and safe. So in the early days, it was we saw steep declines, and employment in the unemployment rate rose dramatically. But over time, that kind of leveled off, and we started to see job gains coming back. And really, what we've seen over the last, 6+ months is organizations just cannot fill positions. Many organizations, large organizations, have dozens, if not hundreds, of open positions that are sitting open that they can't fill. They can't get applicants into the pool. It's a challenge. And I know, for example, at my own university, we have just so many open positions that can't be filled. And so then what happens? People have to do the work of their colleagues, people who aren't there anymore. So now I'm doing my job plus another person's job, and dealing with the pandemic and everything around that. And so burnout goes up, and stress and anxiety and depression and all those sorts of things, all those challenges are increasing. Couple that with people taking the time to really consider, is this the right job for me? Does it align with my meaning and purpose and what I want for my career? And seeing the labor market pressures that are causing wages to rise. And you can look around and see other people getting really nice paying jobs at other places. I mean, it's this perfect storm now for organizations to have a lot of struggle in hiring, and for employees, for people to have tons of options. And when that happens, it's even more important, more than ever, that organizations and leaders within organizations spend a lot of time and energy, and be really thoughtful about how they're going to continue to attract and retain great people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you mentioned how you're doing two people's jobs, right? But probably chances are you're not getting twice the salary that you were getting before, right? I'm just guessing. So this is happening universally, and workers are departing in droves.
So the question then is, what do we do about it? How do we respond to this? And how can leaders make their team, their organization, a really enticing place, even amidst these market pressures? And maybe you're in an organization where you can't, where you're really struggling to keep up with the wage race, and you're having a hard time, having the same level of salary or hourly wage that you see some of your competitors having. How do you compete with that? And how do you create an environment where people are going to want to come work with you?
Right. I mean, so the first thing, it sounds obvious, but I still want to hit it hard. The first thing I would say is show appreciation to your workers who are there. Again, it sounds like a no-brainer, but I would say there are lots of different ways to do this. One thing is to say thank you. Another thing is to say thank you in person, if you can do that. If, let's say, it's all remote, but maybe you can take them out for a breakfast to thank them in person. Another way is just to give them recognition within the company. Let's say somebody has been working overtime, acknowledge that. Let's say a team has been huddling overtime and very successful. It's really, if you're their manager, it is your job to tell them how much you appreciate them, how much they mean to you, emails, pats on the backs, everything you can think of to acknowledge them. Because I think a big problem that workers have is that they don't feel very appreciated. And if
Yeah.
you are one of those bosses that can show appreciation, I think you are halfway ahead already.
Yeah. And so many people feel like they're going above and beyond in their jobs, right? And then I don't know how it's been for you or, for listeners in your organizations. But the reality is everyone's dealing with this from the lowest level employee all the way up to executives. And so I get it. And it's really easy for an executive or a middle manager or a team lead to think, I'm working my butt off too, and I'm not getting extra pats on the back. I'm not getting extra thank yous. Suck it up and do your job. I understand that's how people could approach it, but regardless of how the person you report to is treating you, you still owe it to your team and members of your team to show that level of gratitude and appreciation for the work they're doing, and acknowledging that they are going above and beyond. Maybe you are too, and maybe you're not being acknowledged, and that sucks. But if you want to keep good people on your team, it's up to you to share that with them and to really show genuine appreciation.
Yeah. And I mean, traditionally, there have been a lot of surveys that show that workers, they appreciate pats on the back, even as much as a raise, sometimes even more. So if you just keep that in mind, that not everything is monetary. And sometimes you can just go a long way by, employee of the week, win of the week, like this person, and putting it in writing, putting it in email, letting them know that you care. So that would be like the first number one thing that I would think of for doing. I mean, the second thing is that I would try to think hard about how to inject two things into the culture now. One of them I would say is a spirit of play. And another one I would say is a spirit of camaraderie. And both of these things are going to be more difficult in a remote environment or a hybrid environment. I mean, there is no question about it. If you're meeting in person, it's much, much easier to have a party, to do something fun, to take the day off and, go on a mission retreat, those things. But if you are in a remote environment, having anything be fun or feeling like teamwork is going to be much, much harder. And I think, you need to brainstorm on it and use your imagination and ask the people who work for you, if you need to, what can we do, so that our meetings are more fun and more entertaining? Because to the extent that you can simulate play and make work fun, I think you will retain people more.
Yeah. And fun, it can mean, lightheartedness and people just feeling comfortable enough to tell jokes and to just be vulnerable with each other. It can mean, having that ping pong table or the air hockey table that you take a break and go and have a little bit of fun. It can mean that, but largely what we mean when we say having fun at work and creating an environment of laughter and fun is about just having an environment where people feel like they're connecting with their meaning and their purpose, and where they're energized because of the work that they're doing. If you're in an environment where you get to try new things, where you get to experiment, and you feel safe enough to do that, where you're not going to, there's no punitive kind of environment around that, that becomes fun, especially when people are doing the work that they're already passionate about. And so just lean into that, leverage that, and you can unlock a lot of hidden potential within your people.
Right. I mean, I think that one thing you can do is you can have teams, you can make it competitive, you can have silly rewards. There's a lot of things you can do that will emulate play, that will make people sort of lighten up. And usually when people are more relaxed, better ideas come out of them too. So it's not like you're wasting time on the play portion, you're just creating an environment where people can stretch and throw out ideas and feel like they're actually having fun at the office. And I'm just saying it's harder on Zoom because we're all in little square boxes. But if that's the case, maybe you need to do a breakout room, mix it up a little bit. Or you can start by having an icebreaker. Like instead of just launching into the meeting, boom, it's 9 a.m., let's launch into the meeting. You could say, I would like to hear what everybody did over the weekend, or, what books are you reading, or something like that, just to broaden it and have people feel like, oh, I'm a human being. My bosses care about me. They care about me outside of this square on Zoom.
Yeah, I think that's right. So we absolutely need to create an environment where people feel like they can experiment and have fun and just be engaged. We absolutely need to be showing gratitude on a regular basis to our people. What are some other things that we can do as we're trying to attract and retain the best talent amidst this really tight labor market?
Well, I would say, to focus on your employees' experience. And by that, I mean their current experience, like, are they happy? Are they enjoying the work? And I would say if you're a middle manager or above, also try to work out with each of your workers a plan for their growth and development. If they feel like you care about them learning and growing and getting promoted and getting raises and taking on more responsibility, they will stay with you. What the problem is when they feel like, oh, I'm just like a number, I'm just a worker, nobody cares. That's where the issue comes in. If you make them feel from day one that their growth is essential to you, and that in fact, you will be judged on their growth too, right? It's like a win-win because it's also reflecting back on you. So you're both like they're both pushing together on their growth. I think that will, really, really help. Additionally, I just want to make a point about feedback, because this doesn't mean, I'm not suggesting that as a boss, you have to give people 100% perfect feedback every time, the proverbial A on the report card. That is not true. If somebody needs like development help, it's incumbent on you to help them realize a way that they can get better at their jobs as well. So I just want to take a little bit of a quick detour and just say, when you're giving feedback to people, it should be constructive. It should be like, I would start with what they're doing right first, and then I would frame it in a way that they're doing, well, but they can do it even better if X, Y, and Z, and that you as their boss are like a coach. If you think of yourself as a coach rather than just their supervisor, I think it puts you in the right frame of mind, because coaches are always looking for ways for their people to improve, but they're still like respected, they're still an authority figure. And I think if you say, I'm a coach and I'm going to coach my team, my people to success. And one-on-one, if you say to somebody, I am going to make you be the best you can be, and we're going to work on it together. I think that those things really help go a long way.
It also embedded in that coaching approach and mentality is the genuine desire to support your people as they're developing, right? So as you're giving this feedback that you were just talking about, if you're taking a coaching and mentoring approach, your people are going to feel that you care about them, that this isn't punitive, that you really do want to see them succeed, and that you're going to help them get there. You're going to support them as they go through the developmental stages. And when you can do that, I mean, that really can unlock a lot of potential with your people. And as you mentioned, the performance of our people reflects well on them, of course, because it's their job and they want to do well so they can progress either in the company or move to a different opportunity at some point. But your job as a leader, that's exactly what your job is, to unlock the potential of your people and to help them be successful and individually and collectively. So it absolutely makes you look better as a leader and will give you a chance to also advance in your career. So it really is a win-win. It's so interesting to me when I hear leaders talk about not being willing to invest in their people because they feel like it's a waste of time. Like, well, what else are you doing? That's your job. And if you're not doing that, you're going to have poor performance. And lo and behold, you're not going to look like a very good leader.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I also wanted to kind of hit that word mentor a little bit harder too, because I think that typically workers feel like they wish that their bosses would mentor them, their direct supervisors would mentor them. And sometimes they feel frustrated that they're not getting the attention that they need. But another thing, like if you have a lot of people working for you, another thing you can do is you can encourage them to find a mentor within the company, somebody in addition to you, so that you don't feel like, oh, you're always burdened with all the mentoring. Like, let's say you have 25 people working for you. You can encourage, you could even, if you wanted to, develop a mentoring system within your team or your company. And I just want to say, mentor does not have to be somebody older, somebody who makes more money. It can be somebody of any age, and colleagues can mentor each other. I mean, it's really like, what is a mentor? A mentor is somebody who cares about someone's development, who isn't competing with them personally, and who will just give them great advice, I think. So if you feel burdened and you're a boss, I would say try to think of a way to match up your people with a mentor or even an equal of theirs, where they can talk to each other about any issues that they might have. I think mentoring, like in companies where there are mentors, people are much happier. And I think with a little bit of ingenuity and imagination, you can figure it out so it works for your people too.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well said. Well, Vicky, I'm noticing the time and I'm going to have to let you go here in a few minutes. This has been a really fascinating conversation with lots of good ideas. I think that'll be very helpful to listeners. Before we close today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your work, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Vicky Oliver. You can get in touch with me at vickyoliver.com. It's pretty easy. It's Vicky with a Y, oliver.com. It talks about my books. They're available on Amazon and other places where books are sold. And as a final word on it, I would just say, put yourself in the other person's shoes, put their Cole Haans on or whatever shoes they're wearing today, sneakers, Nikes. Think on, if you were working for yourself, what would you advocate? Think of yourself as the perfect arbiter of what a great boss is. And you're an ambassador for your company. You're the boss of bosses, and think of yourself that way and just try to grow as a boss. And I think you will.
Yeah, I think so too. I love it. Thank you, Vicky. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Vicky can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.